Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Leaf. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting... Today we're doing a movie that is Kris Kringle versus Kramer. We are talking about The Santa Claus, a movie that has everything to do with legal wrangling, both contractual and in family court. So I'm really excited to be digging into this one today. This is my first time watching The Santa Claus, so I won't have any nostalgic memories to share, but I do have a lot of thoughts on the movie. I think it was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad to have our guests back on the show. You heard them last talking about The Land Before Time. So please welcome from the Media Lit podcast, Kris Ingersoll and Randy Allain.
Thank you so much for having us back, especially for this movie. I can't believe it's your first time. I'm thrilled to hear what you thought about it.
Yeah, I share Chris's shock that this is your very first time watching The Santa Claus because it's so wired into my childhood. But I cannot wait to hear what it looked like through a fresh set of eyes. So thank you for having us.
Oh, glad to do this. That's one of the fun things about the podcast is, yes, it's fun for me to kind of wallow in something I'm super nostalgic for, but it's also really cool to see something through someone else's eyes and experience it, you know, their love for it, and then my thoughts on it for the first time. I can explain your shock pretty simply by saying, number one, I'm Jewish, so not a lot of cultural push to watch Christmas movies in general, but mainly not even that, more so for this particular one, I was 14 when this came out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, this is what, 94. So the things that were on my radar were like Pulp Fiction. So, you know, a movie like this geared towards Goyish children was just not going to ever, you know, it wasn't going to get up in front of my face. That's not to say I haven't seen my fair share of Christmas movies. I have, but just not this particular one. But that's enough about me. I want to hear about your guys' nostalgic memories. I know you were both like, really excited to talk about this one. So, Kris, I'll throw it to you. Tell me about your nostalgic memories of this film.
I was not 14 when this came out. I was more like 6 or 7. And so, like, there was already the excitement that Tim the Toolman Taylor was going to be the Santa Claus. Like, the early trailers had you laughing, and the beats from him seemed familiar. But, man, this movie, for me, was like, it was evidence that Santa is real. I love the Christmas season. It means the world to me. Even now, I would tell you that I'm like a believer in Santa Claus, in the magic that this season holds for all of us. And when some of the things that they created came on the screen, which I know we'll get into as we get through the film, but the North Pole, the sleigh, the culture of the elves, all of it made so much sense to me. I was like, oh my gosh, somehow they figured it out. They know what Santa in his workshop is really like. It all felt so real to me. So this became quickly a holiday favorite, and it's remained a seasonal watch every year ever since.
Randy, how about you?
Yeah, so it looks like I'm going to thread the needle in terms of ages. Kris was about 6. I was about 10. You were about 14. So we were hitting this movie at different times. One thing I cannot for the life of me remember is when I went to see this film, where did I stand on the Santa Claus myth? I can't recall if, you know, I quote unquote knew or if I still believed in the magic. And that was driving me nuts trying to remember along the way. But I love the way Kris put it, that it made him believe in Santa Claus. Because if that is a part of your life and your experience, this film is there to back you up, right? You have these parents freely talking about the notion that this is false. It's a fantasy. To a 10-year-old, that felt a little bit dangerous because even if I had moved on, I had 2 younger sisters, and I know I was very invested in the fun of Santa Claus, no matter what. So to see them kind of stick the landing and find a way to allow for both possibilities to be true, I don't know if any movie's done that as well as this one.
Yeah, I mean, I have two kids. They are 5 and 8. And even though we're Jewish, I'm not an asshole. I'm not going to take Santa Claus away from them, and so like we do these yearly Christmas parties that are hosted by one of our friends, and because I think one, I am Jewish, so I'm not sacrificing a slot to do this. Also, I'm kind of the chubbiest of the group, so I get to play Santa Claus every year for this party, and all of the kids. So every year I sneak off, I put on the costume. And then the fiction we've agreed on with the kids is that why is Doug always missing when Santa Claus is here to do his shtick? Is that I'm in the bathroom the whole time.
Amazing.
And they think that's hilarious. So I'm debating. This will be I think the third or fourth year that I've done this. So I'm trying to think if can I put a spin on it. So like one thought, maybe I'll just come as Jack Skellington this year and just really mess with them, but which would be cool. But yeah, so there is that, right? There's that tricky spot of like, when do you let kids in on the fact that, it's not real? And how do you do that? And this movie like takes a solid stance that like, well, one, obviously Santa Claus is real within the world of this movie, but the way people react in this movie to that conundrum is that kind of drives the whole plot. Mostly everyone thinking that poor Tim Allen and his son are clinically insane.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to pose to you is I think this movie asks a lot of metaphysical questions that it does not answer, but are fun to think about. So maybe we'll talk about this as we walk our way through it. But it had me thinking a lot about like Santa Claus as not as so much like he's this, this Turkish guy who's been inhabiting this role since, I don't know, the mid 1200s or whatever, but he's this is there's this book series, The Incarnations of Immortality by Piers Anthony that I read, which basically has the same plot device where the first book, there's different offices. So there's like death, time, fate. And the first book is about death. It's called On a Pale Horse. And in it, death shows up to kill this guy. Through a series of events, he ends up accidentally killing the Grim Reaper and thus has to take on the role. It's the exact same idea.
Okay, yeah.
So that was in my head. I was thinking like, what an interesting idea that like the Santa Claus, may actually just be some guy who, either intentionally or unintentionally killed Santa Claus.
Yeah, I always wondered as a kid if we're meant to believe that like the Santa Claus before Tim Allen was the eternal Santa Claus, or if it was this rotating cast of characters, and maybe the guy that Tim Allen took over for had only been Santa for like a few years himself.
Which means he has a family somewhere that's wondering what happened to him.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, see, I've got some theories about that. Bernard and the other elves seem so very unaffected by the death of Santa Claus. I really feel like they've seen this show a million times before, especially Bernard.
Yeah, maybe they go ahead, Kris. Yeah.
No, I was going to say there's further evidence even because the second movie will establish a second clause in the contract that requires Santa to find a Mrs. Claus or else he loses the position. And so if there was no existing Mrs. Claus when Tim Allen took over, then that other Santa could not have been Santa for very long, or he would have come up against the same conundrum.
She would have been waiting for him to come back.
Yes.
There would have been a Mrs. Claus already living there. And you're right. Like the elves are not broken up in the slightest. Like the Santa they've been serving is dead. You're right. They know what this means when Tim Allen shows up. He's been killed. Not one of them sheds a tear. There is no funeral for Santa. It's just like, oh, well, same shit, different day.
Right. They're already on to next year's supply, right? Like these toys aren't going to make themselves, people.
I mean, there's no rule that says, unfortunately, like this. It's not like the person who kills Santa Claus is vetted for, whether they would make a good Santa Claus or not. So you almost wonder like, well, maybe the last guy was a real dick. And like, they're like, all right, great, he's gone. Maybe the new guy will do a better job. Yeah. Lots of fun. The other thing I thought of was, this reminds me a lot of like, this feels like it should be a Jim Carrey vehicle almost. And I bet the only reason it wasn't is that he hadn't hit the big time yet when this movie came out. But you look at like Liar Liar, minus the Christmas, kind of a similar idea. Did you guys watch 30 Rock? I was thinking of the Leap Day William thing, which is also kind of this. where
Yeah.
Jim Carrey is within the universe. There's a Jim Carrey movie about this Leap Day character that like he ends up like growing gills and stuff and having to dress like him. Like it's the whole same plot.
Yeah, this would have been a perfect fit for 90s Jim Carrey, but to your point, he's just a couple of years behind the kickoff. Yeah, what was Liar Liar like 97?
Yeah,
Like a
Ace
little
Ventura
later.
was 94. So,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, I mean, he had been making movies before this, but he wasn't Jim Carrey, capital J, capital C at this point.
Right. Guaranteed to bring in the dollars, Jim Carrey, like he was by the end of the 90s. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so let's get into it because we got some movie to cover here and a lot of jingling to do all the way. So we start off. Santa walks into an office Christmas party. This is, of course, a costumed Santa, not the real one. And we get a sense of the workplace of Scott Calvin. That is the character played by Tim Allen. And we see that he's sort of a toy maker. He has some role in like developing and marketing this very successful doll. And we just sort of get some like general yucks and stuff from them before he heads off to go home. But I think it's an effective introduction right to this guy. And like he's not a bad fit for Santa because he has some of this like love for toys and stuff, but he's also like he's still kind of a corporate stuffed suit.
Yeah, very much still like not your first choice for Santa. There's nothing personality wise that really sets you up for the idea that this guy could or should be Santa Claus. But I think they were trying to draw a dotted line between the fact that he works in the toy industry and he's becoming Santa Claus.
Well, they want to redeem him throughout the movie, right? He has to learn to be Santa Claus, but I think for the movie to work, they can't start him off at like so far from that. Like he can't be Walter White that they're going to turn into Santa Claus.
Right.
He has to be just kind of a bit of a grouch, maybe. He's got some stuff going on in his life, as we'll see. But he drives home, and even on his way home, like he's lying, right? He's not a good person. He's lying to who we'll find out is his ex-wife. That there's so much traffic on the way home, and like there's nothing. He's just a jerk.
Yeah, it bums me out 'cause it's my least favorite kind of dad. Like he just chose to stay at the Christmas party for too long when his son, who he gets to spend very little time with as a visitation father, he sacrifices any amount of that time just to stay at the holiday Christmas party and then is not at all bothered by it. He just wants to get away with it. It's like my least favorite kind of dad. So especially as I'm older now, I find that sequence so disheartening. And to your point, Doug, you need the film to redeem him.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you see that in a few minutes when he gets home. There's so much needling between Scott Calvin and his ex. And you can tell a big part of it is she's probably endured years of his just casual lying. It's just his default setting. And the lies are stupid. We'll see everyone at the office know he is full of shit later on. And yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, their relationship is definitely realistically frayed. Like my parents weren't divorced, but I had plenty of friends whose parents were, and I observed interactions kind of like this, where it's like we have to be civil, but I am very glad to have ended this marriage because I've had enough of your bullshit. But we can't do too much in front of the kid. Like there's all of those that balancing act is I think pretty well observed here. So let's see. So he comes home. The wife comes to drop off Charlie. In the car is Neil, her current, I think, husband. And we'll get a little more of him later. That's Judge Reinhold playing a guy he's, of course, you want to punch him in the face. Usually you want to punch Judge Reinhold in the face anyway, and almost everything he's in. He just has a punchable face. So they're leaning into that here. And Charlie is, he's excited to see his dad, but also you can tell there's some disappointment where like, hey, there's not that many presents under the tree. And, the Christmas with dad is definitely a little of a downgrade from Christmas with mom.
Yeah, you get the strong vibes that he is not Charlie's favorite parents, right? Like it's really clear that the lack of effort he has obviously put in Charlie's whole life has taken its toll. By the age that we meet Charlie, he's like onto his dad's game. He doesn't need much from he doesn't need much from this guy. If anything, you can tell he's already taken a liking to Neil.
Yeah, as Charlie puts it, do I really gotta stay? He's pains. Yeah, he knows this is not going to be fun. It's going to be all about dad, never about him, never about his interests.
Yeah, I mean that's a really hurtful thing to hear from your kid. Like, oh, do I have to spend time with you? Like, oh, because that comes from sincerity. Like kids that young, there's no filter. So that's just like, yeah, that's about as pure of just like, I don't want to be here with you. That's pretty devastating to hear. Yeah. There's probably a version of this movie too where like he's working to try and get his parents back together as part of the plot, and that's not even happening here. That's not even there's no hint of that, which suggests that like they've been divorced long enough for him to have given up on that dream.
Yeah, he's a very adult kid. Like on the one hand, he's cute and adorable. He's kind of this little pipsqueak. I've got a 5-year-old at home who is also a bit of a pipsqueak for a 5-year-old. And when I had this movie on, he dropped a little piece of wisdom. My 5-year-old said, "He talks cute like me," which I thought was pretty cute. However, my 10-year-old dropped some really intense wisdom on me early in this film. He was trying to figure out why he liked it. And what he said to me is, it's like the kid is the parent and the parent is the kid. And I thought he really latched onto something there that's valuable, certainly with Scott and Charlie. But, even with Charlie and Neil and some of these other adult kid relationships, even the elves who are childlike, taking charge.
Yeah, really well said. I love that from Ben. What a great observation. And I think it's wise too, because that's what the film is going to kind of want to play with. Like to your point, Doug, it's not that this guy is inherently qualified to be Santa Claus, but they do imply that at the very least, he's the parent who wants to keep Charlie a kid, who wants to preserve the magic. He wants to preserve the myth of Santa Claus for Charlie, while the other set of parents, the mom and Neil, are prepared to grow him right up. Like Neil clearly speaks to him in his professional jargon, because Charlie is already like quoting therapy phrases. He's already using Neil's professional jargon on his dad. But to your point, Randy, later, that maturity will turn itself on Neil too. He's just they definitely aged this kid up and helped to enhance like that difference between the two sets of parents through his lens.
Yeah, and that's obviously on display right in this first meeting, because we find out that Neil, or Charlie asked Neil if Santa Claus was real, and Neil didn't say what you would expect him to say, which is, of course, Santa Claus is real. He didn't like contradict him, but he just sort of said like, he sort of let it go of like, yeah, I'm not going to tell him Santa Claus is real. And Scott is pissed about that, as you said. Like he does love his kid. He wants him to be happy. He wants to enjoy childhood, and he wants time with dad to be fun, even when he's failing at it. And so to have this, punchable interloper here trying to take away what might be his last Christmas in, still believing in Santa, like rightfully he's annoyed with that. I love this. We get a cut here where we see this huge feast, this Christmas feast, which my first reaction was like, wow, he went all out for only like 2 people, one of whom is like an 8-year-old. It's a crazy amount of food. But we zoom out, it's on TV, and we see that what he's actually done is just absolutely torch whatever it was he was trying to make, which leads to them going out to Denny's to get substitute Christmas dinner with all the other failed single dads.
All right. Denny's. It's always open.
I don't want to eat here.
What are you talking about? Everybody likes Denny's. It's an American institution.
Are you with Hatsutashi?
No.
Dad brought the turkey.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Come on. Right over there?
Thank you.
There we go.
Burn a turkey?
Coffee?
No, thank you, Judy. What do you say we start out with cold glasses of a delicious seasonal favorite, eggnog?
I don't like eggnog.
We're out.
Coffee, decaf.
All chocolate milk, please.
We're out.
Plain milk's fine.
Okay.
At least we know they got hot apple pie.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think that's a funny, like, satirical way to look at divorced Christmas.
I love that pan so much from the TV dinner to their actual dinner, like because not only do you get the burnt turkey, but I think my favorite detail on this rewatch is you've got like the partially made gravy still in the Pyrex
Yeah.
measuring cup. Like you can see the fat is separated from everything else, but it hasn't actually been prepared yet. Yeah, just totally lost in the moment.
Yeah, there's like some sad stuff already on the table in front of Charlie. Charlie's sitting there patiently, but it's so brilliant because not only does the camera pan in a way that reveals it's a TV screen, but the audio adjusts too, right? You realize that what you're hearing is diegetic audio. It's coming from the TV and becomes masked by the sound of the fire extinguisher going off in the kitchen. Really hilarious. And to your point, Doug, the Denny's bit is such a fun device. I mean, probably if you're a single dad experiencing that movie, it's a depressing device, but really comical when he looks to the other dad and he's like, burn a turkey, and the guy holds up a whole bandaged hand. Comedy gold.
Yeah.
And you
Go ahead.
sorry, just even the little interlude when before he goes to Denny's, he tries to pull up to like a fancy Italian restaurant, and he's like, "Oh, do you like ossobuco?" Which is like veal shanks braised with vegetables. It's like the least little kid meal you could possibly imagine. So just love those little out of touch touches.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, ruined Christmas dinner is a comedy staple, and the proof is so for this month of December, we're doing 5 episodes. 4 of them are movies.
Nice.
3 of them feature a ruined Christmas dinner. So
Excellent.
yeah, I think the winner for the grossest one though still goes to the turkey in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation that like turns into an HR geeker like horror monster of that thing. Just so anyway,
first ticket Hall of Famer. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go to the Denny's. The only thing we need to sort of point out about the Denny's dinner is that their restaurant, I'm sorry, their waitress, I believe her name is Lucy. So that's going to come up later. Or Judy. Sorry. Thank you. I didn't write it down in my notes here because I didn't know that was going to be important later. But yes, so their waitress is Judy, and we keep getting this dynamic where Charlie will talk about how awesome Neil is at not everything, but like where it kind of hurts a little bit, where it's like, oh, Neil's a really good cook. And the other thing he'll do is he will repeat psychobabble because Neil is a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And so he says something like, oh, well, Dad, you tend to lash out irrationally. You know, you use phrases like that. And Scott has no patience for this. And of course, he constantly denigrates the entire mental health profession by just saying these people, you know, he might listen well, but he charges you for it.
Right. Yeah. And he'll denigrate the industry again and again if it means taking a shot at Neil. That's for sure.
Yep. So they go home and we get a reading of from Scott of The Night Before Christmas. And he sees Charlie's asleep, so he skips to the end, which I've done when my kids have fallen asleep on me while reading. But then he wakes right up and he starts asking questions about like, what's a clatterer, you know, and how do the reindeer fly, and all these like detailed questions. And Scott doesn't really have good answers for that. He just BS's his way through it.
Yeah, it's so fun because all of us have had those moments, right, where you're a kid and you misunderstand the proper name for a thing because you've only ever heard it sort of said to you in a jumbled way. I like my first thought is LMNO as a letter of the alphabet, right? Like, before you really learn the letters, you've just learned the song and you think that LMNO is a part of the alphabet.
Love that.
I love this bit. And I love the way they'll call back to this with the actual ladder when it appears later. It helps you feel like somehow Charlie's imagination is a part of the magic that's at play here. Somehow the idea that he was wrestling with Santa Claus, the magic in that influenced the events of the night.
So I'm going to ask you guys this because you have to deal with this more than I do. But so the Christmas lore around Santa, you know, there's a lot of the what Santa does, but none of the how. So when your kids ask, well, how does Santa get to, you know, everyone's house in a single night, or, you know, where does he keep all the presents, and how, when they start asking you those like real questions about how it works, what do you guys say?
It's magic, you know? I mean, at the end of the day, you have to choose to believe in a thing. That's true for so many things in this life. I love that when Neil challenges Charlie on this very point, like, have you ever seen a reindeer fly? To which Charlie will answer, yes. And Neil says, well, I haven't. He's like, well, have you ever seen $1 million? Just because you haven't seen a thing doesn't mean it's not real. And so I think that's inherent to magic. And so that's always my default answer. I love this movie because I can point to it and say, hey, you know who I think got it pretty right? I love the way it shows a radiator convert. So I'll point to this movie to tell my daughter I have done this. Like that's probably how Santa's going to get to our house because we don't have a fireplace. It makes sense to me, but who knows? It's magic.
What's interesting is I've never really had to answer that question because I think for my oldest, that answer of magic is so acceptable. His imagination's gone so wild. He's taken in so much different media over the years. I'm really not sure where he is with Santa right now. Like he is 10. I've been waiting for a few years now. Like, is this going to come up? And I kind of have a working theory right now that he kind of sort of knows, but has no interest in acknowledging it because the magic is so important. Weirdly enough, my wife and I have been occasionally rewatching Home Improvement on the Disney Channel. We were watching with Ben, and in the first season of Home Improvement, there is an episode, a Christmas episode, where they like very specifically say there's no such thing as Santa Claus, and we can't believe Mark figured it out already. And they don't really give a magical explanation. I think maybe Wilson shows up dressed as Santa. That they give you like a little bit of doubt at the end. And he was just kind of dead silent through the whole episode. And my wife and I kept looking at each other and we're like, we can't hop up and like turn off the TV now. So I'm curious to see where he's at.
Yeah, I would say if you want to give the kids the answer is, of course, to get to every kid's house in a single night, Santa, of course, has to travel faster than the speed of light, which means he ends up finishing the journey younger than when he started, which is how he's able to remain eternal. Guys, just ask Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's the obvious answer.
Doug, wow. Oh my gosh. Wow.
So,
and if you're a Doctor Who fan, it's timey-wimey stuff.
Of course, it's wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff for Santa, who may or may not be a Time Lord. So there is a clatter on the roof, and Charlie wakes up his dad to go like, hey, what's going on? He's disbelieving, but then, of course, there's too much noise to pretend nothing's going on.
Dad!
What?
I heard a clatter.
What, Charlie?
There, a clatter.
Charlie, what are you talking about?
I don't know, it came a big noise. It's coming from outside.
Charlie, it's just the wind or something. Come on, let's go back to bed. Somebody's on the roof.
Maybe it's Santa.
Not now, Charlie. I want you to sit here, and I want you to stay right there.
So Scott goes outside, looks up, startles Santa, who plummets to his untimely death. Or maybe timely, depending on how many hundreds of years he's been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he his first thought is like, he doesn't like run inside to call 911 or anything. He just looks as like, oh, there's this guy dressed as Santa on my roof. And he goes and he starts looking for ID, I think, at some point. Like this whole sequence is very just sort of like surreal as he's dealing with dead Santa on his lawn.
Yeah, he doesn't do any of the things that a person in real life would do. He only does things that people in a Christmas movie would do, right? He's going to go and he checks the Santa suit for ID. He's like, none of us would get that close to an apparently dead body unless we weren't sure they were dead and we were going to like provide emergency response, right? So you're either calling 911 urgently, like getting your kid as far away from the dead body as you can. He doesn't even kind of shield his son from the potentially dead body. It's a great call.
Woohoo!
Hey, buddy. All right. You should just stay still. Perfect.
You got him!
Charlie, stay where you are. Charlie, would you listen to me? Stay up there.
It is Santa. You killed him.
Did not. And he's not Santa.
Well, he was.
He's got some ID on him, I bet. Fella, if you can hear me, I'm just looking for identification. Once you figure out who you are, I'll give you a lift back to the mall. If something should happen to me, put on my suit. The reindeer will know what to do. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's already in like deny and evade responsibility mode. He's already talking out loud. The guy fell. It's not my fault.
Right.
Maybe this was a home invasion. Maybe he was an intruder. Like he's already got his eyes on the exit strategy, the escape plan. I've got a pretty good lawyer. Not as good as my wife's, but pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good line. But he goes and he reaches into, he searches Santa's person and he pulls out the business card that identifies him as Santa and says, "Put on my suit." And he does not do that right away. He's still trying to figure things out when Charlie comes out, horrified that his dad has murdered Santa Claus. And I wish there was like almost more screaming. I know they can't have it like logically. He can't like wake the neighbors and have them all come out. But it was almost like, I can't imagine how my kids would react to seeing this. But Charlie is the first one to notice the reindeer on the roof, confirming this is in fact actual Santa and not a Grinch or other home invader.
Yeah, and it's perfect because the spotting of the sled and the reindeer begins the conflict in Tim Allen's character, right? He's been professing to Charlie the whole movie so far that Santa's definitely real, that he himself definitely believes. But then now, when confronted with the reality of it, like it's got to be anything else. It's a gift from the cable company. We're getting the Disney Channel now. Merry Christmas. And it's, yeah, I think it's true. And again, this is the way in which I think the movie, for me, always proved Santa. It's true. There's something about magic you have to believe in. And adults have a harder time getting there, right? Once you've let go of that imagination. And so the film immediately establishes that like, no matter what this guy says, he's still a grown-up. And even in seeing the sleigh, he can barely believe it's real.
Yeah. And when he looks back down, Santa's corpse is gone. And it's just the clothes remaining, which leads to him commenting he must be naked somewhere in the snow. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
He'll believe anything other than the magic of it.
And to your point earlier, the next thing that happens is this ladder appears out of nowhere so they can get onto the roof. And it's the like Rose Such a Ladder Company, like that kind of thing, which is exactly the LMNOP thing you were talking about. Like that is how a kid would understand that phrase.
Yeah.
So
I was quoting that to my wife for a week before I actually got around to watching this because that gag always worked on me. Maybe it's the nerdy English teacher within, but love that stupid gag.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And Scott, who we should mention, has been wearing no pants because he just ran straight out of bed. Puts on Santa's pants, which is enough to, I think, trigger the magic. Because he goes up to the roof to go after Charlie, who's already up there now because he's excited and interested and in the sleigh. And so he's trying to keep him away from the reindeer, rightly because they might have, well, he says key lime disease, but deer do have a lot of ticks. You got to steer clear of them.
Sure.
Yes.
And so they both get in the sleigh. Scott less excitedly than Charlie, and he accidentally says, I think the phrase "let's go" or something like that, and it takes off.
And
now we get our ride through their little suburb and then off to the North Pole. But he has to stop along the way too and like deliver presents, which is fun.
Yeah, it's so fun. The movie Noel, I don't know if you've seen this. It's on Disney Plus. It came out just a few years ago. Anna Kendrick, for me, an instant holiday classic, has a similar sequence of that fun first time Santa trying to get the thing done. It also calls to mind Kirstie Alley in Toothless, like trying to be the tooth fairy for the first time and all of the mishaps that come when you are a layman now magically breaking into people's homes. Shotguns will go off and alarms and dogs and all sorts of fun, shticky things. That whole sequence is a blast.
in addition to those fun gags, like I think part of why this movie worked on me as a 10-year-old is just the art design is so incredible. That Santa coat is embroidered with so much fine detail. The harnesses on the reindeer, like, yes, they're fake, but like these beautiful personalized harnesses. It feels handmade. It feels built intangible. I don't think I had ever seen such a realistic sort of lived in Santa costume before I saw this movie. And it really helps sell some of the gags and humor later on. You know, when the biggest fireplace since Citizen Kane materializes in a living room,
Right.
all of a sudden, like, you can buy it partly because of all of those things they could control in that costume design, the props. It's really beautiful stuff.
Yeah, and he's not going to try and ruin anyone's Christmas. Like there's that one girl who he goes into her house and she's awake and he's not drinking the milk, and she's like, "Why aren't you drinking the milk?" He's like, "I'm lactose intolerant. Like I can't," which will pay off later. But like he's trying his best. He obviously doesn't look very much like Santa. He's got the outfit, but he doesn't have the beard. You know, it's a little bit of the Cindy Lou Who bit. You know, we've had this before where, you know, someone wakes up and not quite Santa is there, doing what Santa should be doing. And again, as you said, they answered that question, like, how does he get into a house that doesn't have a fireplace or a chimney? And it's like, well, he just squeezes down through some vent and then a fireplace appears in the home where there was none. Like they do a good job of, as you said, visualizing those answers to those questions in a really fun way.
Yeah. Also,
Santa's watching
there,
his saturated fats.
such an of the moment joke. There are a few just like of the moment jokes, and you know that in 1994 we were all talking about saturated fats. But I was going to say another visual element that I really enjoyed that helped to build the lore of Santa, helped to provide explanation for how he does what he does. The idea that the sack empties after each home and then refills itself magically for the next delivery. So it's not some unwieldy single sack full of a world's worth of presents. It's always just one household worth of presents every time. You see him like pulling the big canoe out of the sack, like Mary Poppins, and the oar that goes with it. All of that visually is just brilliant, and again helps to build the lore really thoughtfully.
Yeah, and so they're flying off towards what will ultimately be their destination, is the North Pole, and we know this is a Tim Allen movie because in the, like, they're talking about Comet, and he gives his catchphrase from Home Improvement. He goes, "Ar, ar, ar, ar," which was that I was just gobsmacked of like, wow, he forced that in there. Like, so, I don't know if the director wanted him to do it, if it was like, because I think Home Improvement was ABC and therefore also Disney. If they were like, yeah, say your thing, say the line, Bart.
Yeah, do the thing. There's also a cameo from one of his friends from Home Improvement. One of like the tool man's guy buddies is driving the truck when Tim Allen Santa Claus pulls alongside at street level. He needs directions, like, oh, an I-84. That's a guy from Home Improvement. It was a little
and 1 year later in Toy Story, they're going to drop the Binford Tools toolbox. So yeah, they were all in on Tim Allen for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, so he mentions, like, I think I'm getting a CAT scan for Christmas, which, you know, that's funny. And they go back to the North Pole, and as you said, like they want to give their take on Santa's village and, you know, this world, which we've seen many times before, and it's usually rendered, you know, it's a cute little village in the snow. Think like, you know, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Rankin Bass animated special, things like that. This was a really original idea. I love that it's this like subterranean base. That's a great idea, and again, it kind of explains the question of like, why wouldn't you see it from space?
Hey, buddy! User! Hey! Can you hear me? What's that?
I don't know. I think it's the North Pole.
That's the North Pole? Hey, buddy, we need some help. Hello? What are you doing?
Close your eyes and come. Christmas bells and bring you
There's just this big hole in the ground where there's like an elevator that takes you down into it. Cool idea.
Yeah, and they literalize the North Pole, right? He asks, like, what's that? And Charlie, just in his innocence as a child, he's like, well, I think that's the North Pole. And his dad's incredulous that it's the literal North Pole. What a brilliant device.
Right.
Yeah, and then just those like really practical lived-in sets full of toys, full of costumes. They're just going for it. I don't know if it was as effective as they wanted in the Santa Claus sequels, where they tried to go a little further with all of that, but they give you just the right amount here for me.
Yep. And this is our introduction to the world of the elves. We won't be back here for a while, so they do a good job of kind of again showing you like here's all the elves at work. Here's here's where they make all the toys. Here's where the reindeer their pens are, where they hang out. Like all of that is like very well realized, I think, and done in a great kind of almost like Hasbro come to life way. And we meet Bernard, played by David Krumholtz from A Million Things. I don't know, 10 Things She Hate, 10 Things I Hate About You, for example, comes to mind. And he
Oppenheimer,
is like,
baby.
Oppenheimer, Numb 3RS,
Numbers,
the television show Numb 3RS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a good actor.
Starring Northern Exposure's own Rob Morrow. Sorry.
Indeed. I actually kind of like Numbers. I know that's a show for boomers, but I do like it. It was well done.
Yeah.
My mom was a math teacher, so
Nice.
she was real into it. Anyway, so he comes out and basically kind of again, none of these elves are fazed by the fact that Santa is dead and now there's a new guy in town. So he starts giving them like the quick tour and saying, "Here's the deal. You're Santa now. You're legally Santa because of the title Santa Claus."
Look, I am not Santa Claus. Ah. Did you or did you not read the card?
Yeah, I read the
Then
card.
you're the new Santa. In putting on the hat and jacket, you accepted the contract.
What contract?
The card in the Santa suit. You said you read it, right? So when you put on the suit, he fell subject to the Santa Claus. Here.
The Santa Claus? Oh, you mean the guy that fell off my roof?
No. Not Santa Claus, the person. Santa Claus, the clause.
What?
Look, you're a businessman, right?
Yeah.
Okay. A clause, as in the last line of a contract. You got the card? Okay, look. The Santa Claus. In putting on the suit and entering the sleigh, the wearer waives any and all rights to any previous identity, real or implied, and fully accepts the duties and responsibilities of Santa Claus in perpetuity until such time that wearer becomes unable to do so by either accident or design.
What does that mean?
It means you put on the suit, you're the big guy.
It's ridiculous. I never put on a suit just to...
Try to understand this. Let me explain something to you, okay? Toys have to be delivered. I'm not gonna do it. It's not my job. I'm just an elf. It's Santa's job, but Santa fell off a roof. Your roof. You read the card, you put on the suit that clearly falls under the Santa Claus, so now you're Santa, okay?
Which is, when you look real close on the business card, just printed around the edge in tiny letters, it says like basically, if you kill Santa, you become Santa. Which, like, what a thing to have on a business. Like, this must happen often enough that like he needs that card to hand to people. This is the other metaphysical question I was going to put out there, by the way, which is, this is a perverse incentive to kill Santa. Like, if you murder Santa, you become immortal and only have to work one day a year. Not bad.
Yeah, I mean, a kid in Charlie's class will go right there later in the movie. It doesn't take much of a leap for this one kid to like logically connect. Wait, so when I grow up, if I want to be Santa, all I got to do is push you off a roof. It's like,
I've been thinking about this in recent years because to a certain extent they've kept this franchise alive. And Tim Allen's not as marketable now as he was in 1994, and it's kind of wild to me that they haven't pushed the Tim Allen Santa off a roof yet to give us a new take.
Yeah, that is the easiest way to reboot the series, right? Just tell Tim Allen. So Tim Allen, of course, is not crazy about all of this. He's got better things to do. He wants to go back to reality, as he calls it. And David Krumholtz basically says, "Look, you don't have a choice. You have 11 months to get your affairs in order, and then you got to be back here so we can make Christmas next year.
Mm-hmm.
Make a list of who's good and bad. You've heard the song. Do it." And he says, "What if I choose not to do it?" And he's just like, "Well, then you're going to disappoint all of the children of the world. Do you really want that on your shoulders? So get out of there. Let's do it."
He doesn't really warn him at that moment that he doesn't have much of a choice, that his body is going to begin to transform in completely irrevocable ways. It's a bit like the enchantment on the hammer Mjolnir, right? Not only does it like you wield the power of Thor when you wield Mjolnir, and whoever puts on the suit then like becomes Santa Claus. But I love that it's like a full body transformation in the same way when Thor wields the hammer, the Thor costume comes on him and he actually physically resembles Thor more. Yeah, the magic here has like a very permanent and highly noticeable physical effect on Tim Allen that he's not warned about in this moment.
Yeah, you wonder what
Yeah,
happens if a
and
female kills Santa Claus, because that's a really significant transition.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know maybe they can update some of that legalese. I wonder if the magic can be worked into it. But can I just shout out David Krumholtz as like an MVP of this movie? Because he makes the handoff so perfect. You know, he's going to go on to be such a successful actor. But I, as a kid, and even watching it yesterday, I so instantly believe him as this old soul. Like he has it in his eyes when he says, "Try to understand this." You know, when I have my weakest moments as a teacher of 18 years, you know, like when some of that energy is leaking into my voice, I can see it in his eyes. When he switches to kindness and hands Charlie the snow globe, and he says, "This is very old, just like me." Not any young actor could have sold that line, and I fully believe it. Just great stuff.
Yeah, we should mention, so all of the elves are played by children, but they are all, ageless elves. So like they joke about them being like, I'm 400 years old or whatever.
Yeah, they've got pointy shoes that are older than you.
Right. And I think all of the kid actors do a pretty good job of selling this reality that they just have the bodies of children. I like that. We meet one of the other head elves we'll need to meet is Judy.
I brought you some cocoa.
Oh, thanks.
My own recipe. Took me 1,200 years to get it right.
1,200 years.
That's right.
I must say, you look pretty good for your age.
Thanks, but I'm seeing someone in wrapping.
This is good. This is really good.
Not too hot. Extra chocolate. Shaken, not stirred.
Which again, same name as our waitress from before. That'll become important in a little bit. And she says, yeah, she gives them cocoa that it took her 1,200 years to get the recipe right, which that must be a hell of a cup of cocoa.
It knocks Tim Allen's socks off to the point where he's almost annoyed that it tastes so good. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's good. Oh, it's really good." Like he's like still doesn't want to accept what's happening, but he can't deny the taste of this chocolate.
Yeah, and there is like,
I still haven't tried to shake my hot chocolate despite having had these instructions from Judy for all these years. Shaken, not stirred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another joke in here that's for adults, which is he says something about like, "Oh wow, you look good for your age." She says, "Thanks, but I'm seeing someone in wrapping," which is like kind of another version of like the joke from Airplane. I like my coffee black, like my men. It's just one notch, off of that.
Yeah.
So he gives him that snow globe, and that's important. We don't know exactly why, but it has some sort of magical power that we'll find out about later. They bring him monogram pajamas where he finally puts it together that his initials are SC, which I had thought was like, okay, I didn't know they were actually going to call that out in the middle of the movie. I just noticed like, oh, okay, they're being cute that he has the initials SC, but no, they actually like spotlight it for a moment. And then they go to bed and they wake up the next morning magically back in their beds at home, but he still has the Santa Claus pajamas on. So then we move into the next morning where now we get into like Act 2, which is the disbelief plot. So Charlie's mom and Neil come in to pick him up after Christmas with Dad, and he immediately starts trying to tell them everything that happened, and he looks to Dad to back him up, and Scott is like, "I can't back you on this," which will be the central conflict through like most of the movie.
Yeah. I love the change in Charlie because he's alive as a child. He's alive with childlike wonder in a way that he was not before. When he was a kid in his doubt about whether or not Santa was real, then he had this incredible proving experience. And he's just like, he seems so delighted to be able to continue to live now in a world where this is real, and he can believe in it wholeheartedly, and there's no more doubts left. Even now, as his dad, who was the surefire Santa's real guy, even as his dad now doubts, there's no doubt left for Charlie, and you can like see it in the kid's energy.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because Tim Allen doesn't really believe what he saw the previous night, or because he knows that if he says that out loud, he will look insane.
Well, I think he's still in the like, they're doing enough little things, like Judy was the waitress. So then she also manifested as like the elf in the dream that I had. And I must have told Charlie about the dream in kind of my half awake state. They do enough of the same thing with the Rose Suchek ladder. Charlie had previously confused that when he read in the story, so that it makes sense then in some sort of a weird dream experience that would manifest. Like they're doing enough with those little indicators for Tim Allen to remain mystified, not quite clear.
Yeah, like, and he doesn't want it to be true, so he wants to believe that because he's this slimy businessman. You know, he's been developing the tank with 1,000 parts that are going to have to be replaced. He's fine with that. He wants to be out at fancy, trendy restaurants with his group, and this wholesome, saccharine Santa vibe. It's not him. It's not the world that he lives in. He's not ready to give that up just yet.
Right. Well, this leads to the next scene, which you had alluded to before, which is the scene at school where parents are showing up to, kids are showing off their parents and what they do for a living. So you've got the kid whose dad is a firefighter talking about being a firefighter. And the teacher, who I, by the way, noticed is Mary Gross, who was on SNL around the same time Eddie Murphy was back in the early 80s. Funny lady. You can tell she doesn't have much screen time, but I love, beleaguered teacher. I'm sure, Randy, you can relate to this.
Oh, yeah.
So she brings up... Yeah.
Whatever.
So she brings Charlie to introduce his dad, Scott. And he wants to come up and talk about, of course, his job as a professional in the toy development industry. But what he gets is the enormous lead in from Charlie telling the entire class that his dad is Santa Claus, which, of course, no one believes. Although the kids start, as you said, asking questions like, hey, if I kill you, could I be Santa?
Yeah.
Yeah, like who's your favorite reindeer, all this good stuff. And it creates like the immediate conflict in their world where now Charlie talking about this out loud to other people is going to create some unwelcome curiosities into the relationship he shares with his dad. I want to just call out real quick something so of the time that struck me about this scene. Like, we didn't yet know how to talk about non-traditional families, quote unquote, when the teacher goes to introduce Charlie's, she thinks it's going to be Neil, and she can't just say stepfather. Like, his parents are divorced. He has a stepfather now, but in this context of like Disney family films, we're not quite ready. We don't know how to say it, so we're going to awkwardly bring up your Neil person. It's so weird.
Yeah, it does more to alienate the class from Charlie than it would if they just said, yeah, he's got a stepdad, because half of you have divorced parents. Like, it's not that unusual.
Yeah.
Well, this leads to more trouble because immediately we cut from here to the principal's office, where now all three parents are there to talk about the problem with Charlie, which is that he persists in this delusion that not only is Santa Claus real, but that his dad is Santa Claus. And I think this scene is a great chance for Tim Allen to throw out some of his funniest stuff.
The reason we're here is that this is far more serious than a boy believing or not believing in Santa Claus.
That's right, because Charlie thinks that this whole thing actually happened.
Scott, what was the last thing you and Charlie did before you went to bed Christmas Eve?
We shared a bowl of sugar and some shots of brown liquor, played with my shotguns, field dressed a cat, looked for women. I read him a book.
What book?
Hollywood Wives. The night before Christmas. Folks, come on.
And did you go to the North Pole?
This is ridiculous. I don't have time for this.
Ridiculous or not, Scott. For Charlie, this isn't some dream. It is real.
Because she asked something like, "Oh, what did you do on Christmas Eve or whatever?" He's like, "Oh, eat a whole bowl of sugar," and then he just gives this list of horrible things they supposedly did. Play with guns, drink liquor, look for women. It's like, no, I
Mhm.
read him the night before Christmas and we went to sleep. Come on. Like, but it's a very funny moment.
Yeah, it's like his default. It's this deflective humor, right? It's humor as a defense mechanism that Tim Allen does so well, right? Like his male characters are constantly suppressing their feelings by putting up this wall of humor. And what does he say? Like, yeah, we field dressed a cat. He can't answer a single question in a straightforward way because I think she even asks, or Neil asks, "What book did you read him?" And he gives yet another sarcastic answer.
Yeah.
Before being, come on, people, night before Christmas, what is wrong with you all?
Right. And it's his weakness too, because like he hates Neil so much. He knows how bad this looks for him. And now Neil's going to get to step in and be the good doctor and take control of the situation. He can't handle it.
Even as a kid, right, who had never been in a relationship of any kind other than the one I had at that moment with my parents, I guess.
Mhm.
Like I found Neil so infuriating, even as a child. Like I wanted Tim Allen's character to win this rivalry so bad. When Neil sits down in this room and he's like, "If I may, I am a doctor."
Mhm.
You just want to punch him in the mouth, like right, pow,
Mhm.
right in the kisser.
Like I said, most punchable face in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Him and like sometimes Giovanni Ribisi. You can
Ooh,
punch him good. Think of
good
him in
one.
like Avatar. Like, ugh. So we get kind of some walking and talking with Scott and Charlie, and again, Charlie's just sort of trying to say, "Well, what about the polar bears? They were real." And Tim Allen's not having it, and Charlie tells him he's in denial again, parroting stuff from Neil. And he asked about, what about the snow globe? And again, disbelieving it. And I do like this moment. So after this kind of walk and talk, and like the kid Charlie can say, "Well, you got to get this together because kids are going to need you and believe in you." They don't really resolve anything in the conversation, but as they're walking away, they do notice that this pack of reindeer is following them. Not Santa's reindeer though, just actual like wild
Mhm.
reindeer. Which I would be concerned if I saw a pack of reindeer following me. Like people get gored by antlers. It's ugly.
Where do they live that
Yeah, are they
these reindeer traveled from? I don't understand what location in the United States of America they are attracting this herd of reindeer to them. What kind of radius does his magic have to be
Mhm.
calling upon them?
Yeah, I assume there's somewhere up. They've got to be somewhere near the Canadian border. Like just in terms of one, you're seeing reindeer, and two, obviously lots and lots of snow. So they're not down where I live
Yeah.
in Southern California.
We
Right.
get some Illinois license plates, courtesy of my 10-year-old's sharp eyes.
Oh,
Nice.
okay, all right.
Nice.
So that helps. I don't know if there are any reindeer in Illinois, but I will accept it either way because I don't know.
I will say in New Hampshire, you can visit Santa's Village amusement park, and they do have a full set of reindeer with the stalls and the reindeer names. So maybe they got something similar.
Yeah, there was a Santa's Village near us, not near, but near the mountains here in California where it does snow.
Mhm.
You can drive up to. It's about maybe 2.5, 3 hours from here, and I never really went there. I've been by it during the summertime when it was not operational, which is kind of a sad thing. It's like, oh, it's post-apocalyptic Santa's Village. There's no one here. There's no snow. There's, you know, uh, less fun. So mom checks in on Charlie, and there's like a North Pole sign on his door, and he's just playing imaginatively in his room by himself, but it's all Santa all the time. And mom goes to talk to Scott again, telling him, Scott, their son continues to be obsessed with Christmas and this fantasy that you're Santa Claus, and do something about it. And this is where Neil starts quizzing Charlie on Santa physics, and Charlie tries to offer the rationale based on his lived-in experience.
Charlie, it's just not logical. How can one man, in one night, visit all the children of the world?
Not everyone celebrates Christmas. And I think there's some sort of time continuum that breaks down what Santa's in the sleigh.
What about fireplaces? A lot of people don't have them. How does Santa visit those people?
He turns into Jello and the fireplace kind of appears and he goes through it like this.
What about the reindeer? Have you ever seen a reindeer fly?
Yes.
Well, I haven't.
Have you ever seen $1 million?
No.
Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
It's like
Yeah, he gets one of his best line deliveries there when he's like, you kind of turn into jelly and it just sucks him up like this. It's a great little line delivery.
Yeah, I like that Neil thinks he's going to logic this kid out of believing it's Santa. Like it's, that's not going to work. He's 8. Even setting aside the fact that he's seen Santa and the workshop and everything with his own eyes, even if that had never happened, you're not going to sit down with an 8-year-old and be like, listen, the laws of physics makes it very clear. This is impossible.
Well, what's beautiful is because Charlie does have the lived experience, like I said before, and Neil has trained him to be such a good logical thinker. Like he's very quickly able to turn those tactics back on Neil in that conversation and get Neil into a logical conundrum about the $1 million that he can't answer.
Yeah, he says you've never seen that either, but you know it's real.
Yeah, so if you want to do the logic game, I can still win that one too.
Yep.
It's like the kid is the parent and the parent is the kid.
Smart Ben. Smart Ben.
So we get one more scene of Scott and Charlie trying to talk out this problem. It ends with Scott trying to bribe him. He said, for $5, just keep it a secret. And this rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, which is just like whenever the parent is like, let's just keep this our secret. Like that's so coded with like bad. Whenever the only good secrets you can tell a kid to keep are like, we bought mom a present. Don't tell her.
Right.
That's about it. Anything else is keep it a secret. Usually bad.
And later, like he is going to kidnap Charlie. So some bad decision making here.
Oh, there are moments right through the end of the film, even after he's theoretically redeemed and everything is settled, he's reconciled with his wife, where you're still like, how is this guy making these choices and getting away with this? But we'll get there.
Yeah. So now we move into sort of the beginning of the end of of Act 3, which is the physical transformation, because he wakes up the next morning and he all of a sudden he has a big beard and he's put on quite a few pounds. And we were told again that he had 11 months to kind of get things together. It's not entirely clear how time is passing throughout the movie, but we get a sense this must be closer to the next Christmas because this is starting. And he runs into work in sweatpants because it's probably the only thing he has that fits, and just makes up a bunch of lies about why he's late and why he looks the way he does.
It was a big B.
Yeah.
Like they're bad lies, but they were kind of fun and impressive. The dry cleaner went up in smoke, some kind of chemical fire. The fact that it's so just baseline for him.
Well, and it doesn't even make sense because like the need to wear the sweatpants and sweatshirt is justified by the fact that he's gone through this like short-term body transformation. If he got stung by the massive bee and he's still swollen, then that's a perfectly acceptable explanation for why his clothes don't fit. He's not going to go buy a new business suit for this temporary situation, so he's wearing the sweats. The extra layer of lying was not necessary.
Well, then we get into this lunch, though. They're having this, work lunch through a meeting, and he orders a salad and then a bunch of desserts, which he then eats only the desserts and leaves behind the salad. So this is like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly kind of transformation happening now.
Yeah.
And he's like, eating only sugar. And I love that all of his coworkers are getting, they're actually concerned about him. And his appearance, like his boss, who's played by Peter Boyle from Everybody Loves Raymond. Also, he's the monster in Young Frankenstein. And I love it's interesting. I couldn't imagine being in a workplace today where your boss comes over and is like, "Listen, you're too fat. You have to go on a diet." Like that would be an HR problem immediately, that you're like getting involved in somebody else's weight.
Again, such an indicator of the time, right? Like this was a time in America when it was more than okay to fat shame. It's more than okay to say, what people should and shouldn't be eating, get the skim milk, get the carrots, yada, yada. They watch him eat his desserts, and the one colleague gives him side eye and throws the bee lie back at him.
Yeah.
Stung by a bee, Scott? As if like we can't see what, all so absurd and so of the time. I also can't imagine working at a place where like the lunch I get to just order off of whatever menu's available for the in-building catering.
Yeah.
is so extensive, so impressive. That dessert spread was unbelievable.
Yeah, I've had situations where like we ordered lunch in for a meeting or something, but I've never like been like, well, as long as it's on somebody else's credit card, let me go nuts. It's like, no, I'll get a sandwich and be a normal person.
I will say I didn't love the fat shaming, but at the same time, I do read that scene as like they've known him to be this like fast-paced, like hard-edged, like shrewd businessman. And I get the sense this is the first time they've seen him. Like he's suddenly like in sweats, like suddenly has like gained this huge amount of weight in a short time. It made me like slightly more forgiving of the boss being like what the heck happened kind of thing. But yeah,
Well,
I
yeah,
mean, honestly, the better lie would have been to stay home sick, but it does set up a fun scene. So
yeah, and I think like to kind of maybe dampen the fat shaming thing a little bit, which is like if you did see someone who like put on 50 pounds overnight, that wouldn't be
Right.
indicative of a lifestyle choice. That would be like you might want to see a doctor because something's going wrong.
Right.
So yeah, and so then we get this thing where there's this pitch, as you said, for the this toy tank that is a piece of junk that falls apart and is basically an excuse for you to buy replacement parts for it. And so Scott starts railing against the toy and railing against the violent ad campaign that would go with it. Like all of a sudden, like Santa Claus is really taking over. Like, no, this should be innocent and sweet and fun.
Now, remember, this is just a storyboard, but here is our preliminary total tank TV spot. Okay, now we've got Santa. He's up in the North Pole. He's getting ready for Christmas.
Oh, no.
Problem?
It's just a little thing. The elves,
What about the elves?
they look so funny.
Well, they're supposed to look funny. Yeah. They're elves.
Just my opinion. Can't they look a little younger? With silver specks on their cheeks?
Can we continue here? Okay. Now this year, Santa's not going out in a sleigh. This time, he's going total tank.
Wait a minute. No way. No way Santa's going anywhere without his sleigh.
He would if he's trying to sell the total tank.
Well, isn't that a pretty picture? Santa rolling down the block in a Panzer. Well, kids, I certainly hope you've been good this year, because it looks like Santa just took out the Pearson home. It's coming! Oh, and another thing, but what about the reindeer? Reindeer and Santa, Santa and a reindeer, it's kind of a package deal.
Calvin.
You don't believe in Santa, do you?
Calvin, can we get back to the presentation?
We're not done yet. Since we've opened this box, have any of you tried to build the total tank? It's got 10,000 parts, and even if you do get it together, it breaks 10 minutes later. Then you got to spend more money just to buy new parts.
Well, I thought that was the whole point.
No. What we got to do is develop a basic, simple, inexpensive toy that will nurture a child's creative thinking.
Calvin,
Here, try the brown one.
can I see you outside a minute?
So yeah, it's a nice moment, but like also like we don't see him get fired, but like, I mean, the way he tears into his colleague on this is it kind of goes past the point where he's making reasonable points about criticizing this idea, and he starts looking more and more irrational.
Yeah, I mean, it'll lead to his boss taking him outside, right? It's not just to say, hey, man, you need to get healthy. It's to your point, Randy, they see that he's lost this business edge. He's become this sort of erratic guy who's concerned about all the wrong things in that room, right? Why is he concerned about the toy being high quality so kids don't have to buy replacement parts? That is the opposite of our business model. They're concerned physically and mentally at that point.
Yeah, in the opening sequence, he and his coworker are being honored for this doll that they've sold. It's immortalized in an ice sculpture, and presumably there was some sort of money-making catch to that toy as well. So they're also like, Scott, like, you know what we do here, man. Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, well, his boss says you should get some help, and immediately we cut to, he's on a treadmill, he's at the doctor's office, and I like, other than the fact that he's gained 45 pounds in a week, and he has this beard he can't get rid of if he tries, he's otherwise as healthy as he could be, which makes sense because, again, he's immortal now. And but he asks what his diet is, and he says, mostly milk and cookies, which is a funny idea.
Oh, no, your pulse is great. I don't know, Scott. You're as healthy as a horse.
Yeah, Clydesdale.
Okay, look, so what? You put on a little weight. A little weight? Does this look like a little weight to you? Weight can fluctuate from year to year.
Fluctuate? You make it sound like I'm retaining water.
I've gained 45 pounds in a week.
Pete, what's happening to me?
Well, what's your diet like?
Milk and cookies?
Really?
But I don't finish all the milk.
Well, then there is your problem. Just try to cut back on the sweets, okay? Anything else?
Yeah. How fast does hair grow? Facial hair.
What?
I shave in the morning, in the afternoon, I look like this.
Well, it could be a hormonal imbalance.
That would explain the mood swings.
Mood swings?
Yeah, but look at my hair. It's turning gray.
Oh, it's middle age, buddy. It happens. And with that body, you should be thankful you have hair. Look, if it bothers you, you can diet, and you should diet. Just kidding. Okay, up with the shirt. Let's take a listen to the old ticker. Whoa. Okay.
Oh, it's cold.
I love the idea that, like, yes, you leave milk and cookies out for Santa, but that's all he eats. Like that, like a Santa diet. Like it's like if you gave a dog chocolate, they'd be sick. Like if you give Santa, a turkey sandwich, he would be violently ill.
Yeah, no vegetables.
Doug, he doesn't. Santa. Doug, he doesn't drink all the milk. I mean, give the guy a break.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And then this cute bit that he listens to his heartbeat and it's pounding out jingle bells. That's a funny idea.
Yeah.
So we go to a soccer game where Charlie is playing and Scott is sitting there. He's wearing a red sweatshirt to kind of like give him a little hint of actual Santa iconography. And like kids start coming up to him and asking him, telling him what they want for Christmas, which he recognizes as it's a little creepy because yes, Santa is a portlier fellow with a white beard, but there's tens of thousands of people who fit that description.
Sure. Little problematic as the kids begin sitting on his lap there in public. I did notice upon this most recent rewatch, I mean, I've noticed before that throughout the movie, in the real world, they sprinkle in appearances of the elves, just looking like regular children and blending in with regular children. And this is a moment amongst the line of kids there to see Santa at the soccer field. One of the female elves that you'll recognize from the North Pole, and you see her there and her ear is visible. I'm not sure what they were trying to do, if there's a version of the movie that would touch on that plot point more frequently, but throughout the movie you'll spot the elves kind of speckled in to the public.
Yeah, I didn't notice that the ears were there, but in one of those opening sequences they've got the kids looking in the window, and I know they at least shot them in a similar way to how they shoot the elves. I don't know if there were pointy ears. I don't think so, at least not visible, but yeah, it's there the whole time.
Yeah, and Mom is understandably weirded out by all this. She comes up and she basically accused him and says that he is deliberately gaining weight and growing a beard to feed into Charlie's Santa Claus fantasy, which is quite a strong thing. If that in fact was what he was doing on purpose, that would be pretty effed up.
Yeah.
So,
in the same way that Tim Allen is often ignoring things that are right in front of him in order to like deny the magic, these other people are also ignoring pretty like, how would this guy just gain weight overnight, right? Like all of a sudden become, how would he be manually like forcing his hair to go gray? Because it's not like a dyed gray. He's like very salt and pepper in this scene where they meet him. He's like transitioning from his natural dark hair to the Santa white. So he's in this like salt and pepper phase. How would he do that manually? Right. So like a lot of the adults in this movie continue to ignore things that are right in front of them in order to ignore the magic.
Yep.
Yeah. I do have in my notes that it is terrifying though, because the story is right there. He's estranged from this son. They have this Santa connection, and then he's changing. They don't see Scott every day. So like she might not fully understand like how gradual, like she might have assumed the weight gain was a bit more gradual than what we've been led to believe. The hair is a bit surprising, but yeah, it's like he's willing it into existence, and she's so rightfully terrified. And Neil's got all the language to help sell that worry to her even further.
Right. Right. I'm sure he's privately diagnosed her or him with something off the DSM. You know, I don't know if they have a Santa Claus syndrome or whatever, but
Actually, can I ask you guys something? Because obviously Neil and Scott are going to be in competition with one another, but I do feel like one layer of this is I think he can sense the heat between Laura and Scott. Like you can tell that they were a couple, like when they are constantly like needling each other, going back and forth with the insults. Like you do kind of feel the chemistry. Like you can get that it was not healthy and that it was right for them to split up, but you can feel it, and you know that Neil can feel it too. And he takes all those sweater jabs, but then at one point, Scott leaves and he's like, "You were right about the sweater, Laura."
Right. Yeah, you could almost
The
imagine
insecurity.
you could almost imagine a version of this movie where they were setting up Neil to like lose it all in the end, where Scott like both gets the relationship with his son and maybe even gets the marriage back. Again, to Doug's point, that wasn't the plot they were trying to thread out. They didn't have this kid trying to bring his parents back together, but yeah, Neil is kind of like constantly making himself a villain to Tim Allen in a way that if the plot had gone there, we all would have accepted it, right? We all would have been okay with him disappearing from this family life.
yeah, he is to use a film school term, he's kind of a Baxter. But the Baxter is for people who don't know, that is the guy that the female lead is not supposed to be with, that she's gonna ditch him and end up with the protagonist in the end. So think like Bill Pullman in Sleepless in Seattle. That guy. That's a Baxter. But so he's got all the
Also a
markings
great
of that.
Also a fun Michael Showalter and Michael Ian Black film, The Baxter.
Yeah. So he's got all the hallmarks of that. Like he's human tofu. Like he's not interesting. They have no chemistry, but they don't, as you said, that's not the plot they're trying to create. But yeah, you can see that it feels like there was a rewrite at some point that was what they were going to do. So Scott gets a delivery. In fact, he gets a lot of deliveries. It's a crazy amount of these red packages that take, I don't know, like 3 or 4 UPS trucks or whatever to drop off. And it's the list. It's the list of everyone who's naughty and nice that he has to go through. And the weirdest bit of it is that he's looking at all the names on the list, and one of them is Armand Asante, because he's looking at the A's. But like noted Spanish actor Armand Asante is on Santa's list. Isn't he like? He must have been at least 45 or something at the time this was made. It's a funny idea, though.
Yeah, something great just happened, Doug, because I had a note at props to Federal Express for landing the product placement that they get to deliver Santa's list. But you referred to them as UPS. So if you're out there, Federal Express executive, you failed and UPS still got the credit. So sorry.
You're right. They are FedEx trucks. I just messed that up. So,
that's funny.
Yeah, your product placement sucked ass.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, Armand Asante we have to decide if he's naughty or nice this year. And so Mom and Neil are talking about this predicament, and Neil says there is one obvious solution to this problem, but we don't know what it is yet.
Again, he's like such a villain. To see this guy continually trying to influence what this mom does with her child, like, I don't know how long he's been in the picture, but Charlie isn't his son. And in my opinion, he's like a little bit forward with his opinion. Like his idea is to like break up their family further than they've already been broken up. His idea is to like completely remove Scott from the equation.
Right.
Villain.
Yeah, we're about to do that. There is one scene in between though where we have Scott walking down the street. He's like just looking at people and like naughty, like just deciding if they're naughty or nice.
Annie, nice.
Beep.
Johnny, naughty.
Johnny, wait up.
Gary, nice. Veronica, very nice.
In your dreams, Playboy.
We have him trying to shave and dye his hair, which does not work. It immediately reverts back to Santa form. And he says he's in big trouble, but he's actually in much more trouble than this, because as you said, we're going to see Neil's solution, which is to run to the judge without telling Scott or his lawyer, and just immediately asking for a court order that he should be stripped of all visitation rights with Charlie.
Now, can I just jump in here because this is years upon years of watching this movie talking. I I don't hate Judge Reinhold's Neil as much as you guys in this movie. I agree with every single thing that you're saying. All of the moves that he's making, I do not like. But I believe that the movie wants us to forgive and like Neil because we also get the setup of like when did they stop believing in Santa Claus? We get the weenie whistle story and the look on Laura's face when he says he was 3. I didn't get the weenie whistle. I haven't believed since then. In the world of this movie, that illusion getting shattered so early has like kind of pushed him down this path. And I'll save more thoughts for when we pay it off later in the film. But I really feel for him in that moment. I really love that scene between the two of them when she recounts her mystery date game, and I think it's asking us to consider forgiving him. What happens if you lose that innocence too early?
Christmas morning came and oh, I got dozens of presents. Oh, I got everything. Except mystery date.
I was 3. And it was an Oscar Mayer weenie whistle. Christmas came, no weenie whistle. And that's when I stopped believing.
You were 3?
Yeah.
You get Neil.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sweater wearing Neil. Yeah, it is a nice device to make us begin to empathize with both parents and with like all the adults in the world who have lost the inability to see the magic or to believe anymore, right? It sets up this nice idea that as children we have expectations, and sometimes like letting a kid down in just the wrong way is the thing that breaks a kid's heart for life. You know, we're delicate little creatures when it comes to things that we hold dear. And yeah, poor Neil, it was a weenie whistle at 3. Terrible.
Yeah, we should mention what that is. It's a whistle that's shaped like the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. So just in case you didn't know what a weenie whistle was, we should probably say that. Yeah, both he and the mom wanted she wanted a mystery date board game that she didn't get, which I only have barely heard of, and I know from, of course, the famous Simpsons bit where you got the dud.
Well, she even acknowledges that, like, she asks Neil, does he remember it? And she's like, before he even answers, of course you don't. Nobody does. I was like, that's true. I've never heard of mystery date except for in this film.
Yep. So Charlie,
I think my mom had that cultural reference, so she explained it to me, along with her love of all things vintage. So that always worked on me. I love the idea of an old board game you can't get anymore.
Yeah, this is such a sad sequence too, because Charlie comes running out and he's like, "Don't worry, I told the judge everything." And it's like, "Oh, that was the one thing we didn't want you to do. I paid you the $5 to keep it secret. Yeah, I want my $5 back." So the judge does enter the order that he's losing all visitation rights. Oh, and it's suspended pending. This is interesting. They suspended it till January 1. I thought that was going to come into play somehow, where like it's got to wait till after Christmas for them to resolve the problem, but not really, because he goes to their house the next day. And it's like, listen, I know about the order, but I got to talk to Charlie. And he says but at this point he's kind of accepted his fate. He's like, I'm not worried about all the other kids in the world. I'm worried about you. And Charlie gives him the snow globe, I think, to look at, and he sees the sleigh inside it. So now that he's seen the snow globe come to life, that's the last like push he needs to go, okay, the Santa stuff is real. I got to go do my new job.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Thanksgiving night, right? Like Bernard's about to appear. I remember this for me really solidifying, and maybe it's like obvious, but as a kid, the idea that like Thanksgiving is a part of the Christmas season, in that it's like the kickoff, it's the handover to the festive seasons, that first feast that kind of points to the later feast. I love that Bernard comes in and insults the dryness of the bird. It's tough to get the bird right.
Yeah. And
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you got to really base that thing. You got to be careful not to if you're baking it, don't let it go too long. Yeah, it's tricky.
I was gonna say, I make the turkey every year, and I don't baste. I bake it, I roast it over a massive pool of white wine. That really moistens it up, I promise.
Nice.
Hmm.
I love that. I was going to say that January 1st date, that could be evidence of those possible rewrites you hinted at, Doug. But also, I just needed it because the very genuine sobs from Charlie as he walks down that long courtroom hallway like broke me. So the January 1st was like, okay, there's a glimmer of hope. It worked for me on that level. Like, perhaps we'll fix this.
Yeah. Well, Bernard gives his blessing to the Kidnap Charlie program. And so they just because Charlie wants to come along with Dad to get Christmas ready. So Scott takes him and off they go, which leads to kind of their intercutting between the police scrambling to try and figure out where Charlie went and to arrest Scott for his kidnapping, with Scott in the North Pole, getting basically the rundown from, I think they even said the elf's name is Quentin with a Q, because he's doing the Q bit from James Bond, showing him here's all your new gadgets.
Yeah, I love that something about Tim Allen taking on the mantle, something about Charlie being present there in the North Pole has inspired this season of innovation for what I assume was a very traditional operation. They're making upgrades to the sleigh, upgrades to the suit. They have all these ways of enhancing Santa's game. I love that something about Charlie's unique inventiveness brought this about.
The best one is that Comet made him a rope so he doesn't fall to his death like his predecessor, which is impressive because Comet has reindeer hooves.
Yeah.
How do you make a rope without thumbs?
Yeah. He made a card too, right?
I think so.
From Comet to Santa. Did you make the card? It's a nice rope. This in case they fall off the roof? Comet, this means a lot to me. Thanks, buddy. You ready to go, sport?
You betcha, Dad.
Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen.
On Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen.
Ka! Ka!
Yeah, actually, this is a good moment. One thing I was really focused on this time is I was looking at a little lineage of films. I don't want to change our subject matter too heavily, but I was feeling like this movie owed a lot to one of my favorites, Ernest Saves Christmas, where you see a man who is kind of destined to become Santa eventually find that role. You also see a clever take on the bag where I think they're these little magical orbs or something, and you have to wish and it becomes the present that you need. But I was also thinking even more about the film Elf. This is almost a reverse Elf. And that's the next movie that really goes for it with the North Pole set design. Obviously they're borrowing from Rankin Bass. But yeah, the high-tech sleigh stuff is my least favorite thing in this movie and my least favorite thing in Elf. But I have to admit, 10-year-old me thought the elves were pretty cool.
Yeah, I assume we're going to get there because I was going to say that for me as a kid totally worked. ELFS.
Yeah, we'll get
Sorry,
there.
I'm jumping the gun once again.
No, you're good. Because, so Christmas starts. He's off. He's delivering things. He goes back to that girl's house. And she's like, I got you soy milk this year because you're lactose intolerant, right? I remembered. He also said, you're fatter this year, which is, she made good notes. So all the police are at Mom and Neil's house. And which is the obvious place for them to grab Scott, which they do. They grab Scott there. He accidentally drops his hat, which contains a two-way radio back to the elves, so he loses that piece of tech. And while they drag Santa away to jail, another connection, I guess, between Ernest and this movie. He's both saved Christmas and gone to jail. Charlie's still on the roof. So Judy reports the problem, and now it's time to deploy ELFS, which stands
the
for
effective liberating
fight squad.
Yeah, effective liberating flight squad. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Is it
the
fight
elves,
squad
obviously.
or flight squad?
Flight.
Okay. I wrote in my notes as Fight Squad, which is like, that seems a little violent for non-Tolkien elves. It's elves with jetpacks. Like, it's just, they're just off to go rescue Santa. I guess Santa gets into scrapes occasionally and he needs backup.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of cool equipment to support their combat. Like, they do not come ill prepared.
I like this interrogation scene we get next with Santa.
I know you're Scott Calvin. You know you're Scott Calvin. So let's make this simple. I say name, you say Scott Calvin. Name.
Kris Kringle.
Name.
Santa Claus.
Name.
Père Noël. Babo Natale. Père Nicole.
Topo Gijo. Okay, Calvin. Maybe a couple hours in the tank will change your mind.
Again, it's kind of shades of the principal's office scene where he's just gonna lie and not go along. They ask him his name, and he says like Kris Kringle, and then at one point he throws out Topo Gijo, which is a character that that used to be was on the Ed Sullivan Show. They would do as a bit. Like, talk about a dated reference. That's the most dated reference in the movie. I can't believe I'm aware of what that is.
That was there for the parents 100%. That Ed Sullivan Show shout out. Absolutely. Kris, I thought of you during the Kris Kringle moment. That scene's got a new special meaning now that my buddy Kris shares a name with Kris Kringle.
So
you gotta
glad.
love it.
So wait till you watch Santa Claus is Coming to Town and see his young red beard.
Oh, we're getting ready, bud. Don't worry.
Yeah, since our listeners can't see it, Kris has a delightful full beard and mustache, Santa style, and a delightful Christmas sweater as well with llamas.
Bringing my best Neil.
Yep. I still have to. I want to get an ugly Christmas sweater, but now like Facebook is constantly showing like, hey, you want a Lord of the Rings one, you want a Toy Story one, you want a Mega Man ugly Christmas sweater, and so like, all right, I got to decide on my ugly Christmas sweater, and of course, what pop culture thing am I gonna do with it? So I've yet to actually commit to the proper ugly Christmas sweater, but my office Christmas party is coming. I feel like I need to pick one.
I don't own it, but my favorite one is the Home Alone Merry Christmas, you filthy animals.
That's
ugly
a good
sweater is a good one. Yeah,
it's a good one.
I thought about also just getting the Die Hard sweatshirt that just says, now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho. Get that.
Yeah.
All right, so the elves bust in. They find Charlie. They fly him out of where he is on the roof. There's one cop who sees it and just dumps coffee all over himself. This is the first time other than Scott and Charlie, we're having people get, undeniable confirmation that Santa is real. And so the elves basically do the I'll be back scene from the first Terminator. They come to the cop behind the desk to say they're there to bust out Scott. They're elves with attitude, and they instead of driving a car through the lobby like Arnold does, they just tie him up with like ribbon and like they basically wrap him up like a present.
We're looking for Santa Claus.
Go home, kids. Visiting hours are over.
We're not kids, and we're not visiting. We're here to bust out my dad.
You're the Calvin boy. Who are these other kids?
We're your worst nightmare. Elves with attitude.
And shove a piece of donut in his mouth is my favorite touch.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at least if he can't read his romance novel anymore, which is what we find him doing behind the desk, at least he can keep eating his donut.
We also get the line I quoted most as a 10-year-old: tinsel, not just for decoration.
Oh, so quotable.
Yeah, it's weird. So they use the tinsel to like magic the hinges off the cell door, which like I never would have thought that of using even if you're going to imbue tinsel with magic, I would not have thought of that functionality.
It's like a laser cutter of some kind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they bust him out, and Mom and Neil are at home. Charlie comes home. Scott watches them reconnect, and he comes in and he says, "Listen, I don't have a lot of time. I gotta make Christmas for everybody. And he gives the speech that like lets them know, like, you know, I can't be selfish and be with you all the time. Like he has to let go of his grip on Charlie a little bit to do his new job. And but he says, Charlie, you gave me a wonderful gift. You helped make me Santa. And it's very, very sweet.
It's very, very sweet. I'm not sure it quite makes up for first kidnapping Charlie and like just having Charlie do the weird proof of life phone call from the North Pole that he makes in the midst of that sequence. And then he does immediately undermine this when, like, seemingly just a few hours later, he'll come back and take Charlie away for the night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he like makes that, tells his son, oh, I can't be with you all the time. We're both going to be better about this. And then immediately does not follow through. He's just like same old Scott, no matter how Santa he becomes.
Well, it works though now because now mom believes that he really is Santa at this point. She's converted. She burns up the legal papers and the custody agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Neil is more disbelieving, but I believe, is this where they get the whistle in the board game? That comes a little later.
It's a little later. Here, though, he'll see Bernard. Bernard continues to manifest magically in their home, eating their food. You see him. He's eating the pita that we saw Neil previously stuffing sprouts into.
Mm-hmm.
Bernard just shows up and helps himself to their food. And Neil's completely startled by the appearance and then disappearance of Bernard. And you can see the wheels begin to turn. He's almost ready to accept, but it's before the weenie whistle.
Yeah.
I already spoke to my love for David Krumholtz in this movie, but I just have to say again, when he saunters down that hallway with the pita pocket, so self-assured, so wise beyond his years, so calm, cool, and collect, it gave me a theory, and that is, I think Brad Pitt stole cool eating from David Krumholtz. That is canon in my head, and I was like, yeah, he's doing the Brad Pitt thing before Brad Pitt did it. This is where it came from. It's the man David Krumholtz.
I believe
national treasure.
Headcanon for life.
I accept. So let's see. So he tells Charlie the magic of the snow globe is you can see your dad as Santa whenever you want. If you miss him, just shake the snow globe and you'll see him. But I guess since Santa's not that busy the other 364 days, he could make time to come see Charlie whenever he wants. And so they all watch this sleigh take off. We get Merry Christmas to all a good night. The police are scrambling, but Scott's already up and out the chimney. And Neil apologizes. He says he's been denying his inner child, which, man, that's some 90s ass psychobabble. And Charlie says he wants to go into the family business, Santa Clausing. And so, presents drop down on parachutes, and it's the board game and the weenie whistle. And we get one more flyby, and we get like Charlie standing alone just at night holding the snow globe out in his front yard, and it's time to come inside, but he shakes the snow globe and he doesn't see anything. And it's like, well, why isn't it working? Well, it's because Scott is like 2 feet away from him. He doesn't need the snow globe. And so they have one more hug, and he asks mom if he can take him for a ride in the sleigh, but no going over the ocean. So they take off, and that's the end of the movie. What a cool little Christmas treat. Thank you for bringing this to me.
I was just hoping I could shout out one of my favorite jokes before we go. Neil has taken so much shit for his sweaters throughout this movie. It is a running gag. But before Bernard disappears for a final time, he loves the sweater. He's reaching over. He's checking the tag. Did we make this? He's into it. And I was really happy for Neil. Almost as happy as when I saw him innocently blow that very innocent little earnest 3-year-old Christmas gift of the Oscar Mayer weenie whistle. And I'm so happy for him. You see something reconnect in his soul.
You really do. No, I'm so glad you called that out, because I think between somebody loving the sweaters and then like the innocence there, they really work to endear Neil to us in these final moments of the film, to the point where you're ready to accept when Santa says that we're all a family, even as he has to hesitate before uttering and Neil. We're also ready to accept it. Like, Judge Reinhold is brilliant in this one line delivery. He like, his eyes go all watery and he says, Santa, like in a little 3-year-old voice, like that child inside of him is speaking out. And it's really like I think what is Tim Allen says, It's okay, Neil." He like reassures that small child, and it's like wonderfully performed.
Yeah. No, this was a lot of fun to do. It's, this is a very specific kind of extra magical Christmas movie. Like, we've done lots of different Christmas movies just for this month, and there's so many that, across a spectrum of different genres and stuff. And this one is kind of right down the middle. It's like kind of perfect little like Disney fantasy Christmas. I did, before we kind of move towards the end game here of the podcast, Randy, you had mentioned kind of bringing over a one of the features from your show, which I thought was a lot of fun. You, on your show, you always ask what prop from the subject would you want to have? So I'll ask you guys first.
Yeah.
What is it you would want to have from this movie as a prop?
Perfect. So Kris and I have been talking about this off mic. We've not spoiled each other. I know we both have one prop we feel really strongly about. But in the spirit of giving, Kris, I want to give you first crack at this because I'm curious to see whether or not we picked the same prop.
Oh, I don't know. I doubt that we will, because I do think mine is somewhat insignificant in the film, but like for me, it's so iconic. When Judy serves him the hot chocolate in the North Pole that first night, it's this incredible, ornate, like steel mug. It's like this steel mug mounted inside of like reindeer-headed handle, like it's a German teacup almost. It is beautiful. To Randy's point, the art design is so thoughtful. It's so full, this world that they live in. And so yeah, if I could be sipping hot cocoa out of that specific mug from now until forever, I'd be thrilled.
Kris, that's the correct answer. That's the one I felt so strongly about.
Yes,
it's the mug. We do get a set of two in the final sleigh for the final ride.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can both take one home. But I've got a backup answer. Doug, what did you prepare for an answer to this prop question?
So my answer is I want the business cards. I want the business card that says,
yes.
Nice.
"Hi, I'm Santa Claus. By the way, if you murder me, you get to be me." I thought those were fun. Like, I'm a lawyer. There's a non-zero chance people might ask me for a business card. So I think that'll be a fun one to hand out. Oh, here, so you know, I'm also Kris Kringle.
And God forbid you should ever find yourself in an untimely demise. It might be a really fun prank for whoever finds your wallet and is like,
That's
wait
true.
Whoa.
Yeah, you can't control everything in life, but you could control having the Santa Claus card in your wallet at all times.
Right.
So, I love
That's
that.
great.
Yeah, no, it really was the hot cocoa mug. It's that most delicious hot cocoa. I have romanticized what a great cup of hot cocoa could be ever since 1994. And it's that mug. I'm not sure I've had cocoa out of a metallic cup. I could at least get that far down the line. That seems like it would change the entire experience, possibly for the better. My backup prop is going to be that highly ornate Santa coat that he puts on in that first moment, because it really brings me into the world and makes this fantasy film feel real, especially through a 10-year-old's eyes.
That's great. Yeah, I totally agreed. If you had gone first, my backup was going to be the North Pole, but like functional. I want that little dial pad that comes out of it and goes back in.
Beautiful. Great picks. And Doug, thank you so much for letting us bring a little taste of the Media Lit podcast over to Nostalgia Arcanum. That really made our day. I wanted that in my treasure trove, and now I've got it.
Oh, you're very welcome. This was a lot of fun to talk about, and I'm glad that we have this kind of on our menu of Christmas episodes now. Yeah, like I said, it's just a great little treat of a movie. But I'll open it up to you guys. Why do you think it is that people are still looking at this as a Christmas classic now? Oh wow, 30 years later.
I think we covered a little bit of this. I think it's the fact that they created a world where Santa gets to exist no matter what. And they built rules within the world that hold true. They explain a lot of the magic. I think it's a heavy reliance on just good old-fashioned classic Christmas carols. There's even one little musical cue in tone that I don't know if it's identical to the Home Alone score, but it's nearly identical when you get that little like windy nighttime burst, like this sense that Kevin's wish is going to come true. There's something in the air, and I don't know, maybe on a subconscious level that linked it to Home Alone for me and this whole spirit, my whole childhood. I am an elder millennial, not quite a Gen Xer, and we're in the last desperate throes of trying to control the world and force our nostalgia upon everyone. The next generation starting to make their way into that game. Um, but yeah, it was something that transcended the generations for myself and my parents. And now I think it's made the jump again. You know, like a movie like Elf has managed to do the same thing. It's bridging these gaps. And I think this movie does it quite well. And, you know, apart from a few things we called out, it's aged quite well. Um, and well, it, you know, not everything. Is it inappropriate? Yes, but did I laugh at naughty, nice, naughty Veronica, very nice? Did I laugh? I did. I did laugh. And fortunately, we see that Veronica has no interest.
Kris, how about you?
Yeah, I think first of all, that's really well said, Randy. It is like there's some things in there that you could probably nitpick with like a what's problematic in this old movie 2024 lens, but they'd be
Sure.
nitpicks. I think the majority of this is just like that healthy balance you hope to find in a family film between what's for the adults and what's for the kids. For me, the classic nature of this totally lives in the magic of it all. I think I've repeated that word again and again on this pod. The idea that this movie established for me so much definitive lore for Santa Claus. I have to imagine has been true for so many other kids now who, to Randy's point, are passing it on to the next generation of kids who will look for these things in their Santa lore. So I think what evidences the strength of this to me is I mentioned that film Noel, which came out just a couple of years ago, and for me is like the spiritual successor to this Santa Claus movie, where you see a young woman who was actually the daughter of Santa Claus grow up to unexpectedly inherit the mantle by the end of the movie. Spoilers for Noel if you haven't seen it. That movie was for me an instant classic because so much of the magic in it reminded me of the Santa Claus. So much of the magic in it checked out because it jived with what I already believed based on this movie. So I think part of that magic lives in the practical effects. Like, I might be wrong here, but I can't think of a movie before this one that tried to get so much of it into a live action context. You get a lot of mall Santas in old movies. You get like appearances of Santa Claus in the real world in other older live action movies, like going way back, Miracle on 34th Street. But I can't think of another live action experience that like brought it so to life. For me, this was like Jurassic Park in the way that like it brought dinosaurs to life on the big screen. You believed for a second the dinosaurs could really exist in this world today. Like maybe they really brought dinosaurs back. There's something in the quality of those sets, the quality of the sleigh, the quality of the costumes that I don't know. I can liken it too to seeing Spider-Man in live action for the first time and like not being able to believe that it could look so real. Totally holds up.
Yeah, and for me,
Beautiful.
obviously a little different coming from this, seeing it the first time, because I had a lot of expectations about what I thought this movie was going to be versus what it actually is. So I thought that the bulk of the movie would be what happens in the third act, where he begins to transform into Santa Claus and all the like embarrassing, like, oh no, I've got a beard and I can't make it go away. Like, I thought that was going to be the bulk of the movie. So I was really, it kind of really caught me off guard that like, no, we're going to actually go 2/3 of this movie before the Jim Carrey-ness stuff takes over. And it's because they invest all this time into the relationship between Scott and Charlie to make that stuff work better. Like the movie is way more grounded than I expected it to be. But I think that gives it a lot more staying power. I think if it was just the kind of funny fish out of water stuff with Santa, it would be pleasant, but not nearly have wouldn't be as memorable as this is. And I don't think you guys would have picked it to be talking about, or you'd be far less likely to pick it if it didn't have that human part of the movie. So yeah.
Well said. So much heart in this movie. Yeah, really well said.
Well,
yeah, that's 100% true. Doug, I would talk to you about anything, but I'm not probably going to be volunteering the Santa Claus 2 or the Santa Claus 3 because they try to do the North Pole. Like, I'll always appreciate the Santa Claus 2 for bringing us Elizabeth Mitchell as Mrs. Claus. She of lost fame, of course. But yeah, And I think you captured it. It doesn't have that same investment in the human relationships. Well said.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming on the show. I'm really glad to have you back on, and you're welcome back here anytime. So if people want to find the Media Lit podcast, and they should, where do they go to find it?
Well, if folks do want to follow along with our adventures, the Media Lit podcast is a place where we seek to treat every story like great literature. You can follow us on Instagram at media.lit.pod. We would love to hear from our podlings there.
Yeah, and of course, you can find us on Twitter at Media Lit Pod as well. And we've been getting a lot of new followers over on BlueSky in recent weeks. So who knows? Maybe that's going for another round. We'll see.
And of course, if you want to find this show on the social media networks, I've put links to all of that in the show notes. But look up a social media network and look up Nostalgia Arcanum. You'll find it because of its bizarre spelling. And still can't figure out why I went with that title all these years later, but it makes it easy to find because it is so strange. If you want to know what's coming up next, I would say subscribe to us on Instagram and Facebook, because that's where I post a weekly clue as to what the next episode is going to be. I'll post that every Wednesday, so you can try and figure out for yourself and play along. So I know what's coming up next, but you don't. But you will. Guess what? It's probably something Christmassy. So anyway, so look for us there. And if you have time and are so inclined, please do go to wherever you found this podcast and drop it a review if you can't. Also, please do that for Media Lit, of course, as well, because that does a lot to help the visibility of a podcast, helps new listeners find it. And of course, the best thing you can do is word of mouth. If you truly believe that this podcast is real, tell other people about it and spread the gospel. So, guys, thanks again for coming on. This was a blast.
Likewise, Doug. So fun. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's always a treat to talk to you. You really care about why stories endure over the years, and that means a lot to us. And you're just a smart, fun guy to talk to. So thank you so much.
Well, back at you. And if our listeners are curious, I did do a shot on Media Lit a few months back, talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, which was a lot of fun. And we're still kicking around ideas for a return visit as well. And I'll promo that if and when it comes together. So thanks, everybody. And
I think it's safe for me to say that is, I think it's safe for me to say that is likely to be some Batman chatter.
It just might. So yeah, we'll be talking Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill again soon, I hope. So until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgia Arcanum.
Oh, why do we have to play this lousy old game?
Because it was the only one in the house. Come on, Homer. Open the door for your mystery date.
Ooh, captain of the football team. He's a dreamboat. Don't wait up, Marge.
Okay, Bart, your turn. You got the dud!
Hey, he looks just like you, Poindexter.
How come Lisa doesn't have to play? Why does she get to hang out with her friends?
You got friends, you got the dud right here.